Hi, I'm Richard Willing. I want to talk to you today about my book, Money, the 12th and Final Religion, and some of the more interesting biblical saga associated with that book. This is part 2. In the book of 2 Kings in the Old Testament, we find a reference for the temple Milcom. Solomon built on the high places that were before Jerusalem. He built temples for Ashtaroth, Chemosh, and Milcom. But the power of darkness comes to us in the understanding of what is called usury. Now, usury is generally regarded as interest on money, but actually it probably means the sale of debt as a commodity. The merchandising and sale of debt, interest-bearing debt as a commodity. Now, the dark ages of the last 500 years or 1,000 years considered usury as a form of homicide, and they used the original finding from antiquity and declared that usury was one of the 2 primary rules for life on earth plane. The 2 rules for life on earth plane is 1, do not soil the water, do not foul the water, and the second rule for the human condition is do not attempt to regulate life by usury. Do not attempt to regulate life by arithmetic of money. The power that comes out of this darkness comes to us in the story of the Old Testament, where there's a cult of people who appear in Genesis. In the book of Genesis, there's a saga of the Exodus. And in this Exodus, when they get situated, there are 273 men who were more than Levites, had a simple objective. Their aim was to conquer the whole surface of the earth and to extinguish once and for all the possibility of independent thought. In other words, no thought contrary to a life of interest and debt was to be accepted. Now, in this process of this 273 men coming to the temple, they begin their financial work was obviously the greatest swindle of all time. They convince the women of the cult to borrow without any intention to pay all the jewels and gold and silver of their Egyptian neighbors. All other people in Egypt were to be swindled as well. And they put the loot on the children, quite obviously to conceal their intended theft during their escape from Egypt with the money. And this takes us to the arrival at the temple with the loot from the Pharaoh and brings us to the new consciousness, which gives us our 2,000-year-old break with the past. We can recognize this first Solomon's temple for Milcom in our modern life as the great financial bankers that make up our central bank, such as the Federal Reserve, Bank of Canada, Bank of England. The powers of central banking seem to be rooted in this first experience of collecting gold and silver and great wealth, and then lending this great wealth to the community, probably at various interest rates even as far back as 2,000 years ago. So there's nothing new since 2,000 years ago. So I leave you with this. The Mayan prophecy, as it portends a break with the past, could it be speaking to a new era where bank borrowing, bank lending is no longer central to the human condition? Thank you for listening. I'm Richard Willing. Until the next episode, send me your comments and thoughts.